All right. Our last artist to present themselves in this incredible series is Kaytea Petro. And Julian, I don't even know your last name.
Barber.
Barber, I know this.
Yeah. It's on the
Okay,
next
let me do
slide.
that again. Our last artist tonight to present, Kaytea Petro, Julian Barber. These two, you want to talk about imagination? I hope you saw Mars. I got to experience, and I won't talk anymore. I got to experience you installing that. Courtney wrote a whole thing, and I'll read that in a second. But I got to hear you as creators living your environment and your creation minute by minute,
Yes.
which was so unbelievably pure and so unbelievably like unadulterated. Like they came in and were like, okay, well, you're gonna do this. Like it was like listening to little like 4-year-olds like talking about a tea party on Mars.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa. I love it. Okay, so that was, and then I went in, and then I was like, yeah. All right, do you want me to read this?
Whatever. Yeah,
All right, I'm gonna read this.
sure.
After studying at UC Santa Cruz, the Florence Academy of Art, and the Sichuan Academy of Fine Arts, Kaytea permanently injured the tendons in her arms, working as a theatrical carpenter in 2003. The chronic, disabling pain prevented her from making sculptures for a number of years, so she turned to comic books and illustration. In 2011, she stumbled into a ceramic studio and decided to give 3D another try. Nome Island Studios was born out of those first sculptures made after all those years. You and I have been connected through Instagram,
Yeah.
and I'm like, who is this person? Crazy, amazing ceramic sculptor, as you can see. Julian is a producer, composer, scientist, and entrepreneur, having founded and currently leading so many ventures. Truly a Renaissance man. The question of whether this is an archaeology of the future or an archaeology of the future, from the future is intentionally another conundrum of this project. One of them envisioned archaeology done on Mars, long after the early colonial days, sent back to us as a time capsule, warning of what could happen if we stay on our current historical path.
Right.
It is profoundly optimistic because this viewpoint believes that people will be able to change the course of human history for the better. The other of this team envision archaeology from the current era and a straight reading of what happened in the future. This view is much more dystopian and suggests that the cycle of history repeating itself and the value of exploitive Western capitalism would be exported with the colonists. Humans would be treated as workers, but actually be complex people. Things would get complicated. So they had to reconcile their two visions. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's your reconciliation.
That's great.
Okay,
That's great.
thank you.
We envisioned making an installation of Mars as you would find it in a museum in the future done by archaeologists of the time. So finding things that they would have found of the first colony upon Mars, and these are the things we decided to present.
And so like any natural history museum, obviously you're gonna focus on like, how did they eat? What did they eat? What did their houses look like? And then you would maybe have some ephemera from like religion or belief systems.
Or how they spent their day
Or how they spent their day. And so we really wanted like, Renee was talking about how we were going back and forth and like being very sweet, and I kept being like, Julian, don't worry, I got this. I'm building us a hoop house. And he kept being like, what's a hoop house?
What do you mean hoop house?
What's a hoop house?
I was like, have you seen the size of the room? You're gonna
I'm
put
like,
a
no,
hoop
it's
house
cool,
in
dude. I
there?"
got it. And we're gonna build a hoop house. And then so we came and we
She
stole
loaded
all
the car, and I was like, all this is going in there?
Yeah, yeah, and like we liberated some liquid clay from my studio, and that otherwise would have been recycled. And we were like pouring the floor, and Renee and Courtney were like,
Ooh.
what are you people doing? And I was like, I got this, I'm making a hoop house. And everyone's like, hoop house? Yeah, and I think the dystopian, utopian impulse. Like we didn't figure out that we had different idea of what we were doing until like the last day.
Yeah,
We're putting the labels together and we were like, oh.
We started reading what we had for the labels, and I was like, wait, you're thinking this? I was
Yeah.
totally thinking the other way.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's like a living piece because it's still kind of evolving for
Yeah.
our beliefs. Yeah.
And a lot of my work is like lately especially has been like this long deep dive into like why has Western capitalism resulted in where we are right now, and involving sustainability and also involving how we think about race and also involving how we think about money and how we house people and whatever. So I was coming into it from like this perspective, and then Julian's coming in it from like spending all day like at home coding, smoking weed, and like watching like Star Wars. And he's like, it's gonna
Have
be.
something on. I mean,
And he's like, oh, it's gonna be. He's like, it's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be like so great.
Yeah, 'cause-
Everything's gonna work fine. And I'm like, Elon Musk is only giving them one-way tickets.
right.
And
Exactly. Exactly.
and like they're not putting delicious, like even people who are like NASA, right? Like NASA sends better food to the space station than other countries send, right? Like, and people, it's like this whole thing. And even then, it's like 3 years before you could eat an orange again.
Yeah.
Or something, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just crazy. And so Julian's like, everything's gonna work great and it's gonna be perfect. And I'm like,
Oh, see the
let's talk
positive
about the
side.
gold rush.
It was great.
Let's talk about the gold rush in
Someone had to
California.
get here to start things off.
So that was kind of a fun part about this project.
Yeah.
I also want to say, like, Julian has gotten roped into my crazy art, like three-dimensional art projects before, and I've gone along and helped him with like music stuff.
Band items, yes.
I've
music
been the
stuff.
roadie for many of his musical projects.
Thank you again.
Yeah. But this was the first time we had like from the get-go collaborated, and we figured out that from when we proposed the project to Renee and Courtney to execution in the show opening was exactly 2 weeks.
Yes.
So we pulled all of that together
Yes.
in 2 weeks.
Scrap was
Actually,
great.
I'll tell you,
Yeah.
Courtney is not a ceramic artist, so she was super freaked out by the slip on the floor
Yeah,
and all stuff.
I
was
was
like,
too.
It'll be okay.
it's gonna be fine. It's just mud, it'll dry.
Yeah.
And we put plastic under it anyway.
And we had a fan. It was good.
Yeah, so that was all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. You said you had questions?
Yeah,
I was
who has
gonna-
questions?
Yeah. Bring 'em on.
I really enjoyed the fabric pattern on the table.
Yes.
It was African
Fabric, yeah.
fabric, right? But at the same time, the sculpture is like a Buddha
Yeah.
with I forgot the
The
English.
sea lions.
Sea lion.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's going on? It's like, what is the religion or what they believe?
So we wanted to talk about a couple different impulses. So like I was really thinking about like if you go visit Columbia, California, or you go out to Bodie, or like any of these like gold rush ghost towns that you can go visit and look, there's always like a Chinatown, and there's always like whatever. And then we were really conceptualizing, like Julian had this like Afrofuturist, indigenous futurist concept.
Right.
By the way, about Mars. And he was like, it's going to be great because in the future there's going to be brown people. And I'm like, yes, but they're still getting exploited. And so this is like
One-way ticket.
this is the back and forth we were having. And so the Buddha of the Bay, that piece is a piece I made many years ago, but it seemed perfect for this because there would be, people that were Buddhist. I modeled it after a piece in the Asian Art Museum that's got the naga, what is it? The big snakes all around the Buddha. And I was like, well, what if there had been, at the time, I was like, what if there was Buddhists in California in the 12th century? Okay, they would probably be like dressed like Ohlone, and then they would probably have sea lions around them, protecting them from the fog. So that was kind of where the thinking was. And then Julian's like, we have to put those pieces in because they're perfect.
They're perfect.
And so that's kind of how those ended up in there.
Yeah, I totally get it because I saw that this like sea lion Buddha
Yeah.
is in really like California or Bay Area,
Yeah.
San Francisco. and
Yeah.
stuff, so you're like,
Yeah.
aha.
Yeah, and then the Niwa next to with all the little mud people.
Yeah, little baby.
There's actually all over the world. There's a myth from like Central Africa, from like China, from the Philippines, like all over the world. There's a myth that there was like and it's usually a mother goddess. Like after the sky and the water got separated, there's like a lady who comes along in China. She's a lady and she's also a dragon. So she has a dragon tail and dragon feet. And she takes the mud and as the water is going away, and she takes the mud and she tries to sculpt people. And in the Chinese story, like the first people were like kind of floppy and they weren't very smart and they just kind of kept like flopping around and like running into each other. So she flooded the world again to wash them all away and kill them, and then she tried again and she's like put sticks inside them and like rocks inside their heads so they'd like be able to think. Which says a lot.
Explains a few things.
Yeah. So that was why those ended up there. And then like Julian really wanted a food replicator because like it's his favorite thing because you're always hungry.
Right. So that's why
and so
there's
he wanted
one
a
with the
food
Twinkie
replicator,
inside
but then we were
Yeah.
talking about it and we're like, but wouldn't it be kind of like everyone would be angry with the food replicator all the time? It's like college food, where like at college you like they cook for you and they wash up after you, but you like hate them because it tastes bad. And so like I figured like on Mars you'd be like you'd break the food like and then like and of course they'd be like, oh, we have to gamify what food you get today, so you have to like play with the wallpaper and then it'll give you something fun based on your algorithm today. And you're just like, damn it, I just want a cup of tea. Or like whatever.
Or a Twinkie and a shot.
Yeah, or a Twinkie and a shot, as the case may be. So that was kind of where, like, that was like, I think that piece is where the collaboration is most evident.
Yes.
I see, like positivity and negativity just mix each other and fight each other, making a
Yeah.
chaos, and it's more.
Yeah, and the room had some weird holes in the wall, so we did certain things to, like, talking about this wall. Like, there was this weird hole in the wall, and there was this weird, ugly situation that we have done, I think, a fairly good job of masking. Like,
Yes.
you can't, that big grate thing, you don't know where that is now.
Nope.
Nope. So yeah, so that was kind of
How
the
about
thing.
the gloves and the stick
The,
behind the
oh yeah,
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse.
Because the Native Americans.
because of it's a Native American
lacrosse
game, and I
first, so we
figured,
thought
like, you know, if you have a family on Mars, like, somebody's gonna be like,
they're not
oh,
gonna have
oh,
Netflix,
lacrosse.
you know, so you have to find other ways to entertain yourself.
Yeah.
Because really cool.
Yeah, I mean, are you
Yeah.
gonna send someone to Mars and then
And
give
then,
them
like,
Netflix
the-
too? They're just gonna
Yeah.
scroll off and not work. So you wanna like give them things that they're gonna have like. That's
Yeah.
why there are musical instruments on the wall and then the lacrosse sticks.
And also, like, all the clay, like, we were driving around on Mars with the Mars rover. There's, like, hours of Mars rover videos you can watch, by the way.
Hours.
Hours. So we're driving around on Mars, like, thinking about the installation, and we were like, and I was like, holy shit, that's cobalt. Like, there's this, like, chunk that they just drove right past, and it was clearly made out of cobalt, which is this blue rock.
It's on blue?
Yeah.
Blue rock?
Blue rock on Mars. I was like, that's cobalt. And then we were like, oh, we got this. So then obviously you're gonna use a red clay as the Martian clay because that's what is there.
First industry.
First industry would be like ceramic because it's always the first industry. And then, right, like it's like ever throughout human history, always the first industry. And then like cobalt, it would be blue cobalt glazes because there's cobalt there. And of course you're pretty close to the sun and you could have a solar kiln.
We're having a cobalt shortage here.
Oh yeah, we are having a cobalt shortage. Also talc is a big problem for my industry right now.
Just so you know.
Stop powdering things.
What?
Yeah, there's a talc shortage right now. And like,
Okay.
off topic.
Before you keep
Yeah.
going about this,
yeah.
I would love
Yeah.
for you to elaborate on ceramics a little bit and
Yeah.
like the fact that red iron oxide is this
Yeah.
pigment that's in the earth
Yes.
and that's what the red, like
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, yeah,
Go
yeah.
into that because that's
Yes.
part of the glazes and
Yeah.
all that ceramic
So-
knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the cobalt, the glazes on the dishware on the table, you'll see it's all cobalt and it's red iron oxide clay. It's actually a formulation that was originally put together by the Navajo, which is interesting because all the sites, landmarks on Mars are getting named in Navajo right now
Yeah.
because the astronaut doing it is Navajo.
Thus Maz.
Thus Maz instead of Mars.
Because that's the Navajo name for Mars.
Yeah. Yeah. And also because we were trying to think about this whole like Afro-Indigenous future with both positive and negative implications of that.
Thus the jazz in the room as well.
Yeah, and the music is a whole space-themed playlist based off of Thanks.
what they would.
What we
have,
thought
yeah.
they would be listening to is like oldies music. So there's like a lot of Afrobeat on there. There's a lot of like.
Okay, can we talk
Yeah.
about that too?
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, wait.
So the volume is different on all the pieces in there.
Yeah.
So sometimes jazz like comes in like,
It's
like,
Coltrane.
whoa, you can hear it, and then all of a sudden it's like, so can you talk about the audio component?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I collected a few songs for this that I had in my internal library for this, but I didn't actually like maximize. I wanted it to be more of like draw you in or like push you away in some way, so that way you had a little play in the room with it. I didn't know how loud it was going to be at that point for some of the stuff, and some of the songs are just really loud, and I'm like, it's 20 minutes of loud Coltrane jazz. He's just talking about
like
Jupiter.
Or like Sun
You know,
Ra.
yeah, or Sun Ra's on there, a couple things to
Yeah.
like bring it back home.
Yeah.
You know.
So that was kind of intentional, and then the kind of the choice of fabrics all being like African prints, because like we were like, well, if you could only take this much stuff with you, and you were moving somewhere permanently, I would take I would probably take fabric. Actually, both times I've moved overseas, every time I've moved overseas,
Right.
I've taken fabric, lots of fabric. And then because you can use it anywhere for anything and over again for different things. So that was kind of, the thinking was like, maybe these people would be like, I'm moving somewhere where everything's red, so I'm gonna bring things that are like green and blue and like kind of make me as a human happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. More questions?
Do you know any other, you were talking about the female person in between when the water and
Niwa?
the...
Yeah,
do you
she's...
know- do you know about any of that in any other cultures?
So yeah, there's an African person with a very similar story. It's like if you look through human history, there was a big flood at some point. Like that's in the fossil record, right? There was a big flood. Probably at the end of the last ice age, I'm guessing. It's like once the ice melted, it like flooded, and that's like where this whole flood story comes from. Related to that, San Francisco Bay used to not be a bay. It had a river going through it, and there was a 6-foot tall sloth that was called the San Leandro sloth. But not particularly relevant, but interesting.
What? Like,
Yeah, fossil record. The way they would hunt is they would get up on these big rocks and then like kind of like jump down, which is not very sloth-like behavior.
Sloth?
The San Leandro sloth.
They jump.
Yeah, I've made a sculpture of one years ago. They had like fingers like.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah.
That's what that was. I didn't realize it was that sloth.
It's that sloth.
No, it's that sloth. All right.
So that's Mars. And read the if you've been through the room, please make sure to read the labels, because the joke is all in the labels.
Yeah.
And you terraformed it. That's where we bring it back to the land show. So the land show, Adaptations of Land. Julian for years has been talking about terraforming Mars, and I was like, baby, for your 10th anniversary, I'm going to terraform Mars for you. So there you go.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
Thank you for bringing that full circle to the English.
thank you.
Thank you for having
I
us.
Thank you for having us.
I have to actually say, like, so dude, I met a guy from SpaceX who came here and was like, we have this whole educational program, like, so you're planning to evacuate our planet and you're educating kids to go on to the next thing, which doesn't foster
Yeah. Respect.
I don't know.
Respect and responsibility. Yeah.
And how you're gonna sustain that.
Yeah.
It's like, evacuate mentality, and that is super scary to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry, Wally, like my kids are like teenagers. When Wally came out, and I was like, that's
Yeah.
like gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
gonna happen. You know that, right?
Yeah.
We are totally destined for that. Nope. The story. Like, for real, this is the thing, right? Like, it's happening. We are in it. It's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wally is already done. We've already gone there. We're just still, like, cognizant that it's happening to us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because we're humans. We're just like, oh. what you did, I mean, like, we cannot have our escape hatch, okay? Like, we can't just be like, we're gonna plan for exodus.
Yeah. Because we're just,
We have to foster a space to live, breathe, drink water,
yeah.
farm vegetables, and I don't know. I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not even vegan. I am a full-blown meat eater,
Delicious.
and I am scared because I look at this like, what are we doing? We are in charge. All of us. Every single one of us. You're not accountable because we don't care about that. Accountability is nothing. But you have the action, the ability to do things outside of what's comfortable, what's easy, what's accessible. It's funny for a second. It's not funny. This is a shit storm that's happening. And things are happening in these waves of like, we're in control. Every single one of us are in control of this situation. And how you go about what you do, don't change your life, but think about what you're doing and how you do it. Think about your cup of coffee, think about your takeout food. We are in a now like consumer culture, and I'm fully guilty of this, of takeout, where it's cheaper to eat out than it is to cook. What is that? What is that? Think about it. All we're trying to do here is to create points of thinking, points of action. The more we can connect to people through artists, because we're this like magic portal, right? Like we have this, yeah, we make art out of things, do things. How are we doing it? I want to know how you're doing it. And we are trying to elevate that, create change. I don't want to live on Mars. You guys want to live on Mars? Really?
Not yet.
No, you're not gonna live on Mars. You're not gonna make it there. You're like, hello, wake up. You are living here, and your children living here, or your prodigy, or your family, or whoever is living here. This is present. This is fucking real.
Yeah.
Like for real. Like we can't just be like, oh, we can't do that. It's too much. You gotta go. Jump ship. I don't want to live on another planet. Do you? Maybe you guys do, but I don't want to. I don't have enough time. I'm old. I've been here. I have been, my lifetime should be done right now. I'm not kidding. I want to be 50 this week. Woohoo! That was like the death toll for so many people. I'm starting. Oh my God. Who cares about 50? What you do is create your legacy. Every single one of you have a legacy. You have a path. You step into, you carry with you, you take with you, and you give. So how do you do it? How do you do it? Artists have to do it. We're leading that, like, go. Change. Save your garbage and like, what are you doing with it? Our next show is C. How many people are pescatarians? You think that you're gonna live off the ocean? Why would you think that? That's one singular source. It's not pure. It is not, it's not okay. Like, how is this affecting us? How are we gonna live? I don't know. I'm very concerned, and I'm trying to create space with art around that. And I hope that we have an impact. I don't live on Mars.
Certainly
I
not
would
the Mars.
love to live on Mars in your environment, but I promise you that most people who live on Mars are gonna get like zapped and like,
Yeah, starve.
right? Like, how do we do it? Why are we doing that? We gotta see the thing that we created and that we're a part of. Can't jump ship. Don't jump ship. Oh. So, that's it.